hustling, 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 hustling. Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm.
Welcome to the Mash and Soul Show. I'm your host, Mash, and with me is my co-host, Soul. Week 1 is done and week 2 is here. After week 1, everyone is overreacting one way or another. Now is the time where you feel good about your team if your team is 1-0. And if your team is 0-1, you feel like the world is ending. Soul, you ready for week 2?
Absolutely, man. Ready to get going. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm enjoying life. You know, once you get week 1 in, then things start getting real. So I'm ready.
100%, man. And let me just say one piece of information. As you guys, Mash, you know, and a lot of you guys know, I'm out in the West Coast, and I'm a huge Giants fan, and I got NFL Sunday ticket. Man, for you degenerates, it is absolutely addicting. It is nonstop football games for the entire day, and by the end of the day, my wife literally said to me, "You realize you watched 11 hours of football straight?" and I was like, "Yes, I'm sorry."
Do you like it better than Red Zone? What do you think is better? Red Zone?
Yeah, you know what it is? It's just Red Zone on steroids. That is the best way to describe it because you are nonstop just flipping through games. And I mean, you literally could just sit there and not move for the entire day and get all the action. But, you know, as you know, the Giants lost, so there's a little bit of frustration on my part. But, you know, it is what it is. Good to have football back and ready to get going, man.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, you know, we'll touch on a couple of topics today. Obviously NFL, talk about college football, fantasy as well. But we'll get straight into NFL. So let's review the first week, man. So as you said, week 1, we call obviously we're recording on a Friday, but overreaction Monday on Monday, right? Because so many things kind of go haywire in week 1, right? There's lots of surprises, lots of things that people didn't expect. And, you know, throughout, as the year goes on, you'll see that some of it's fluke and some of it's real. And that's the exciting part about it because, you just don't know at this point, but it's exciting to kind of predict, what's real and what's not. So what stood out to you, man, as far as, the first week in the NFL?
Well, I think, I wasn't surprised about Ryan Fitzpatrick, but it seems like a lot of people were about what he would do week 1. I think that game in general was a surprise, 48-40. And, not just Fitzpatrick, but I think Drew Brees, you know, he still got it at this age. He did not miss a beat. And I think that's a big deal. And he looks even better than last year.
Dude, Drew Brees literally is the Wolf Blitzer of football. He literally is the same exact guy for the past 10, 15 years. It's incredible. He plays exactly the same mobility, still very solid arm strength, and he puts up the same numbers. It's crazy.
Yeah. That was a great game. That was just a great game. I don't think people expected that. And Saints tried giving them a fight, but Fitzpatrick just kept going and going and going.
Dude, Fitzpatrick, this is so ridiculous. So everyone had the Saints as head and shoulders favorites for this game, and I had the Saints defense for my fantasy team starting versus this guy. And this dude puts up 5 touchdowns and 400 yards passing. Ryan Fitzpatrick hasn't been relevant since the Jets in 2016 or 2015, whatever the year was. It's crazy. I mean, this guy is like a gnat. You always think Fitzpatrick is done and he's irrelevant and he's just going to be some backup quarterback. And then he comes back out of nowhere and everyone's calling him Fitzmagic again. And there's even talk now about, because Jameis Winston is suspended for the first couple of games, if he keeps this up, they're talking about maybe just keeping Fitzmagic in there.
Well, I actually don't think that's a bad idea. Well, for multiple reasons. I think it'd be a good lesson for Jameis Winston. I think it actually can help him develop as a quarterback and motivate him. And if Fitzpatrick is on, if he's a hot hand, you got to roll with him. Because that team is that's a good team. And that division is really tough. Dirk Cotter's on the hot seat, so is the GM. So if Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic keeps winning, you gotta keep him. You gotta roll with him if he has a chemistry with the receivers. But it's also one of those things where if he starts slumping, losing 2 or 3 games, they're gonna put Jameis back in the game.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. And aside from the Bucks and the Saints, another game that was really surprising was the Lions and the Jets. I think we both actually picked the Lions to beat the Jets last week, and man, oh man, that was a complete shocker. The Jets absolutely blew out the Lions. I think, was it 48-17? I think it was.
Yeah.
And the funny part about this game was, of course the Jets are up, and Sam Darnold's making his debut in the NFL. And what happens? His first throw, interception for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And in most cases like that, where you see that, it'd be like, oh man. I'm sure a lot of Jets fans are saying, oh, here we go again. But he to his credit, he settled down, and he didn't have he didn't put up amazing stats, but he had a really solid game. He made good decisions, was really efficient with the ball, took care of the ball, and as impressive as he was, the other shocking part was the Lions looked terrible. I mean, Stafford was just through multiple picks. They were just completely anemic. And the interesting part is, after the game, a lot of the Jets players, including like Darren Lee, were saying that they knew the play calls, and which was also just completely shocking. They said they could call out, they were able to identify a lot of the plays, and that's how they're able to get those interceptions for touchdowns, and just completely took him off his game. And it's just so bizarre because Jim Bob Cooter, which by the way is the most Southern name of all time, is the offensive coordinator, and he's not new. He's been there for a couple of years, and they've been good in the past. So I was really surprised by that.
Well, yeah, all right. So here's the thing with the whole play calling thing. I think this just shows how good of a coach Todd Bowles is. He just this isn't the most talented team in the NFL, but these players, they always elevate themselves under Todd Bowles, and I think they just watched the Detroit Lions film all off season, and they were just ready to go. I think they were just ready to go. And I know a lot of people are talking about Sam Darnold, but I think the biggest surprise in that game was Darren Lee. They were saying a lot of bad things about him all training camp. I think Bart Scott said he didn't have any heart and all this stuff, and he wasn't ready to play. He came to play. I think he was the biggest surprise. He was dominating, and of course Jamal Adams. He's really good. They got a stud in Jamal Adams. I think he's probably the best player on that defense. That includes Leonard Williams.
Yeah, no, they definitely have a lot of talent on defense. And after all those top picks, you'd hope that they'd be able to do that. But hey, not every franchise is able to do it, right? The Browns for years have had high picks. I know the Raiders for a while had high picks, and not every franchise is able to hit on those. And credit to the Jets, there are definitely some talented young players on that team, and Sam Darnold, that was not a given, I would say. Now, I do think when they were up at number 3, and I guess we'll segue into the next topic, which is regarding the draft, right? And so, unless you're living under a rock, you guys must know that there's a direct correlation between Sam Darnold, the Jets, and the Giants. And the main correlation is that, the Giants actually picked number 2, and they passed on Sam Darnold, and they went with Saquon Barkley. And, there was always the question, well, if Sam Darnold ends up being a franchise quarterback, are the Giants going to regret this? And after week 1, and look, it's just 1 week, but I'll be honest, he looked pretty good. And although Saquon Barkley, I think, is going to be great, I think regardless, I think they made a mistake. And it hurts me as a Giants fan to say that. But when you have a franchise quarterback like this, who's already shown a lot of improvement since his USC days, this is a guy that can play 10, 15 years. Not a running back, he's going to play 5 to 7 years. And Mash, I know you're not a huge Sam Darnold fan. You're obviously all in on Josh Rosen, which I don't completely understand. But I know you love Josh Rosen. But what are your thoughts on that?
All right. So first of all, with this whole Darnold thing, as a Jet fan, I'm excited. I'm rooting for him. I was happy to see what I saw. But we need to relax a little bit. We've seen this, as a Jets fan, we've seen this so many times that everyone needs to relax. He didn't have an amazing game. He was 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Okay, that's not Hall of Fame. They were picking the ball. He got good field position all the time. Before we anoint Darnold a king, let's see him come back from a game. Let's see. We've seen this exact thing before, right? He was he did well because the defense played really well. We've seen it with Geno Smith. We've seen it with Mark Sanchez. We've seen it with Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? So everyone needs to relax. We need to see, even look at Pat Mahomes, right? Look at what Pat Mahomes did this week. We won't know about these quarterbacks till 4, 5 years down the road. Everyone's now also saying, did the Browns make a mistake drafting Baker Mayfield? We don't know. We won't know. We have to give it some time. Just because the dude's not playing this year, we need to see how it plays out after a few years. And I know everybody wants to answer now, but we're not going to get the answer now. Now, in regards to the Giants, I think they should have traded down regardless. Barkley is a good player. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl running back. So it's not a terrible pick, but I still think they could have traded down. They could have gone not just Darnold. I also like Rosen. If they like Lamar Jackson, I think that would have been a good fit as well, right? Pick up some more draft picks. That's always the smart move. But did they make a mistake on passing Darnold? We can't tell after 1 week. We're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of those points, and that's my thing too, right? So I'll just be upfront about this. I'm not the biggest Dave Gettleman fan. I think he's a little bit way too old school, and I don't think he really is, a guy who takes running backs 2 years in a row in the top 10. I think is pretty running back heavy in his mind. But the thing is, if you're not crazy about any of the quarterbacks, and I think it was a lot of varied opinions on this, fine. You don't have to draft them. That's okay. But when you're at the number 2 pick and you have Sam Darnold still on the board, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, your number 2 pick has a lot of equity. And, you could even try to move back a few spots, like 2, 3 spots, and you get a lot of equity for that. And God knows, you may have been able to get Saquon still, even a couple of picks back. And then those extra draft picks, you could have used that to possibly move up in the next couple of years to draft the quarterback that you want.
Look at what Philip Lindsay did this weekend. I don't know if half the people know who he is. He's an undrafted rookie, He had a good, 75 yards, 1 touchdown, and he took some touches away from Royce Freeman,
Yeah, and you'll look at a guy like Chris Carson, a guy who's drafted in later rounds, looked really good, and Darius Geis. I know he's not playing this year, and he's on the IR. Right. But man, if you guys had seen this guy in the preseason, this guy was bound.
Yeah. No, for sure. And Kerryon Johnson as well. So, yeah, you might not get a running back as good as Saquon Barkley. He might be the best running back in this draft, but you don't necessarily need the best running back to be a successful team or a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. And that's not to say that Saquon's not going to have a huge impact on the Giants. I think he will. I think he's a great player. But, again, you're talking about someone who's going to be there for 5 to 7 years versus someone who's going to be there for 10 to 15 years. And, again, it's either if they were taking Darnold or just traded back, I think those would have been better options than what they did. But at the end of the day, I guess time will tell who was right and who was wrong. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But it's definitely something interesting to follow and to track. And I guess we'll just we'll just see. This year will be interesting, though. Definitely for sure. Darnold's getting a lot of playing time. He's starting. Saquon's going to be the bell cow for the Giants. So we'll see. But moving on to our next topic, Le'Veon Bell, or better known by you as Le'Vein Bell. The situation, the holdout still lingers. He's still not there. He, by all accounts, is not going to play this weekend. The real question is right now is, I think everyone's just kind of, their hands are in the air, like, is he ever going to show up? And another thing to on the back of this, we talked about James Conner last week, right? About how he's a good back, and he had a huge game. He had a couple of touchdowns, ran for, I think, 130 yards, had about 57 yards receiving, close to about 190 yards in total yardage. He had a really good game. And I do wonder if that's going to affect the contract situation. Either Le'Veon Bell is going to want to show up earlier because he's scared about his spot, or do you think the Steelers are just kind of like, you know what, we have a pretty good running back. Maybe we'll trade Le'Veon away. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Steelers shouldn't be thinking that, because if you think James Conner, let's say you think he's a Pro Bowl running back, right? We know Bell is as well. So if you have both of them, that just increases your chance of winning a Super Bowl. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what James Conner is doing. Steelers should get them both on that roster. And if Conner's good, that means Bell gets less touches. He stays fresher during the end of the year. It's a good thing. Now, for Bell, I would recommend that he shows up, because at this point, right, with running backs especially, their lifespan isn't long. So he's just losing out of money right now. He's losing money every week, right? And the owner is still making money whether he shows up or not. So I think he needs to get in there. He needs to play, and he needs to help the Steelers win, because at the end of the day, the Steelers still didn't win, right? They tied the Browns. And I think if you look at schematically what was going on, I think they were okay with Conner getting those yards, They were like, all right, fine, Conner, you do what you got to do. What we want to do is we really want to affect Big Ben. We also know Antonio Brown's going to get his. He's going to get his one touchdown or whatever. But we just want to schematically take Big Ben off his game. And that's what they did. That's what they did. So it worked.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I think that was another surprise that, the Steelers and the Browns, actually they ended up tying. Really bizarre game. So just for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch the game, they ended up tying. And the Browns, I think they got the ball. They were set up for a winning field goal. And, of course, the Browns being the Browns, the ball got blocked. The kick got blocked. So it ended up being a tie. But as you were saying, Big Ben, 23 for 41, 335 yards. A lot of that was just trying to, stay in the game. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. He did not look good. And I'll be honest, Big Ben has kind of been regressing pretty quickly over the last year or so. And I know he had said over the offseason that, he was possibly thinking about retirement. And, just in the game, he looked a little sluggish. Is he done? I know he was on the injury report this week with he had an elbow issue, and I think he's like questionable to even play. What's his deal? Is he done?
So here's the obvious thing about Big Ben, right? You see, like, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, they're playing into their 40s and stuff. That's not going to happen with Big Ben. It just won't. He's gotten banged up too much. He's probably near the end, right? I think he's got max. Like, I don't know if he's done it, because I've been saying that he's looked like he's been regressing, especially early parts of the season, for the past few years now. And somehow, as long as he's got that arm, I think he's good. But he could be regressing, right? He is getting He is getting worse, but the thing is, his main game is get the ball to Antonio Brown. So I think as long as Antonio Brown is in his prime, which is maybe another 2-3 years, Big Ben could be alright. But after that, he's done. He's got no shot after that. The only reason why he is still effective as quarterback is because of Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not even just Antonio Brown. He's got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's putting up like triple digit, over 100 yards a game.
Yeah.
Plenty over since last year, and even this past year, he can put up 115 yards. So he's got the weapons, and when Le'Veon Bell was there as well, that's another tremendous weapon out of the backfield. But it's hard to say with him. I think the same probably goes with Eli. I think Eli is definitely on the back end of his career, and some of these guys, you said, some of them can just play into the 40s like Breeze and Brady and look exactly the same, but then some of these other guys just can't, and I think these guys are definitely in the back nine, but still I think Big Ben can be at least an effective quarterback, right, with all those weapons. But I'm sure he'd definitely hope that Le'Veon Bell would have come back because it would help his cause. It would definitely take a lot of pressure off of him, and I think that's what the Steelers need, to be honest, because I don't think Big Ben's gonna be able to carry them himself.
I will say this: I don't think Big Ben can afford any more injuries. Even like 4 to 6 weeks out, he can't afford any of those. I think that will end his career.
Yeah, he's a very injury-prone quarterback.
Yeah, I think one more injury, he's done. So even if, like, in the middle of the season he gets hurt, I think he'll retire after the end of the season if something like that happens.
Yeah, very, very good, very, very solid point there. Okay, awesome. So covered a lot of things with the NFL and recapping Week 1. It was definitely a lot of interesting games and interesting results that happened. Let's segue into college football. So we didn't get a chance to talk too much about college football last week, but we have some doozies this week. Some great matchups in college football coming up for Saturday. What are some of the matchups you're looking forward to seeing?
Well, I think let's start off with the obvious, right? LSU Auburn. I think everyone's looking forward to that game. I think Auburn will win that game eventually. I like their quarterback. They have an NFL quarterback. I thought Miami would do better against LSU, but Ed Orgeron really had that team prepared. That defense looks really good. LSU has a chance. LSU has a chance. They're big underdogs in that game, but they shouldn't be. They could easily win that game as long as their quarterback, Burrow, can perform. Because he looked good against Miami. And if he could do that again, then he doesn't have to be exactly like Stidham, but if he could at least be comparable, LSU has a shot. But in SEC play, Auburn's the home team. They most likely will win.
Yeah, I mean, home field advantage in college football is so important. And yeah, you're right. He's not Stidham. That's something for sure. I think he's just trying to more of a game manager type quarterback, and I think they're gonna try to win on the ground with Nick Brossette and that defense, right? That defense at LSU is nasty, dude. They got a lot of talent, and I do think they have a shot. But I agree with you. I think Auburn is gonna win. I don't know why, but I truly think this could be Auburn's year. I think they got a lot of talent. Stidham is a very, very solid quarterback. And they got a very good defense. And I think if there's anybody that's going to be able to challenge Alabama this year, I think it's Auburn.
I agree. I mean, Gus Malzahn's also a very innovative offensive coach. I 100% agree with that. I even before the season, I thought this could be a big year for Auburn. I really think they could take that division as well. If anyone can take out Alabama, it's them.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So what's the next game you have?
Okay, so the next game I have is Alabama versus Mississippi. Ole Miss. Rebels. I think people are really looking past Ole Miss because of their, they had the whole Hugh Freeze situation and the bowl ban and all that. But people don't realize they got a lot of NFL dudes on that team. A lot. A lot. They can have a lot of guys play on Sunday. And that's why, I picked them against Texas Tech to win. And, I think they have a chance to upset this week. I think they have a chance to upset. Yeah, they're at home. They have a lot of good players. I like their quarterback. I think they really have a chance to upset Alabama. At some point, Alabama got to lose, right? At some point, Alabama got to lose 2 games in the regular season.
Eventually.
Yeah. Eventually, right?
Eventually they could. I mean, that is definitely a bold prediction to say that they may upset Alabama. I probably don't think that's going to happen, in my opinion. I do think this is going to be a good game, though, and I think it's probably going to be a better game than most people think. Ole Miss is at home. I do agree that they have a lot of talent, but I just think Bama right now, with first off, again, of course, they have multiple NFL running backs. Najee Harris, he's a beast. I think he's basically a better version of Derrick Henry. And they have Damian Harris, is also a holder from last year, who's a great running back. And the quarterbacks, Tua, who last year in the bowl game kind of became a superstar, right? Out of nowhere, kind of leading them right now. I mean, they're still working in Jalen Hurts. So this is such a weird situation. So apparently, if you only play 4 games, you can still redshirt. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's gonna play less than 4 games for that reason. I think they already are talking about it. So Nick Saban's gonna give him the option to transfer, right? I actually don't think he should transfer. I think he should stay in Alabama because he's not an NFL quarterback. You already have a legacy at Alabama. He could become a football coach. If I was him, I would stay at Alabama, even if I don't start, because I'm not sure he's a good starting quarterback somewhere else either. I just don't see that with him.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I honestly don't know why he's not considering a position change, because he is a great athlete. I mean, he could totally be like a tight end or H-back type of guy. I'm surprised he hasn't considered that, but yeah, you probably won't see much of him. So I think Tua's kind of run away with that job. But yeah, he's been Tua Tagovailoa, I think I said it right.
Yeah.
He's been pretty much on the money this year. 71% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, pretty much as good as you can possibly get. And I think that's what also makes Bama so damn dangerous this year. Although I do think, as I said, Auburn can challenge them. When you have, I mean, we've always known that Bama's had great running backs, great running game. Obviously, amazing defense, always NFL talent pumping out every year. But, they got a quarterback this year. And I can't remember a year when they had a quarterback that was as good as Tua. So it's definitely a scary proposition. But nonetheless, I think it will be a closer game than most people think. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, man, if Ole Miss wins, you should be screaming out to the bleachers talking about it because you predicted it. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes down. What's the next game you have?
The next game I have is USC Texas. That rematch. We're gonna have that rematch.
You know what's so funny about that? They always play the commercials for USC Texas. It's always that Vince Young Matt Leinart game. How long ago was that?
I don't know. That was a great game. That was a great game. That was one of my favorite games of all time. That game was amazing. But more on this game. USC Texas, this is a must win for both coaches. They have to, like Tom Herman and Clay Helton, they both have to win this game. Because whoever doesn't win this game, the hot seat's going to get even hotter for them. And personally, I don't think either of them deserve to get the jobs they got. Especially Tom Herman. I don't know if you remember when Tom Herman got the job. He had a lot of hype that year. That Houston team, they beat number 3 Oklahoma. They started off 6-0. Do you know what their final record was at the end of the year?
No, what was it?
9-4.
Of course.
So, and we do this in college football a lot. We look at like the first half of the season and we forget about the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And he had another big win too. He beat Louisville too, but he was still a 9-3 coach, and then he took the Texas job. That was still a 9-4 team. So how good was it at the end? It wasn't even a top 25 team. So I think he was a little overhyped coming in. I do like him as a coach, but I think he needed to stay at Houston for a few more years and hone his skills. Because the year before, when he went 13-1, he was using someone else's players, right? So the second year technically got worse. So I think the seat is heating up for Herman, especially after Charlie Strong, who I also predicted would get fired. And I'm not saying Herman's gonna get fired, but I don't think he's necessarily qualified for the Texas job. Not now. He's doing a good job recruiting, but every coach in Texas does a good job recruiting. Just like USC, every coach does a good job at USC. And I think Clay Helton also. I think he's in way over his head. He's starting a freshman quarterback. I do think Texas has the edge, but we'll see what happens.
I'm going to call this the Underachiever Bowl because I can't for the life of me understand how the hell. I mean, USC, I guess, yeah, for sure. They've been underachieving year after year. Even when Lane Kiffin was there and everyone thought that they're going to be a perennial powerhouse again. Of course, they haven't become that. But Texas, this is what I don't understand about Texas. Texas can get any player they want out of the state of Texas, which is one of the top recruiting hotbeds in the country, as is the South in general, right? So they basically get a top recruiting classes every year, and they're never good. They are never good. I mean, we could go back to, the Colt McCoy days. Like, I just can't for the life of me understand how they can just never break through and become a competitive team. I don't get it.
Well, one thing I'll tell you, the players who have been coming out of Texas, they have been overrated the past few years. I think a lot of times what happens with these Texas players, they've been playing in such a high stage at such a young age. They come into Texas with a sense of entitlement, and they just don't put in the work to improve. And I think that's one of the issues that Texas has been having for years. And in terms of recruiting, they have signed like the 5 top players in the country. I mean, the top 5 players in Texas so far.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not going to stay that way. Because what's going to happen is when we come to signing day, Jimbo Fisher is going to steal some of those guys. Right? Because let's be honest, he's the best coach in Texas. Tom Herman does not compare to Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher is one of the best offensive minds in college football. He's a great recruiter. And I could easily see the tide changing in Texas A&M, which is also that fan base has been dying for a consistent winner. And they spent the money to get Jimbo Fisher. I could see them becoming the top team in Texas for the next few years.
That is a very, very interesting call. And, I actually heard something this week about how I think Texas A&M, their football program, I guess, net worth, I guess you could say, is actually, they surpassed Texas for the first time this year as far as, like, revenue proceeds. Or I think it also has to do with, like, contributions from alumni and boosters. But I remember I heard that earlier this week, and I was like, wow. And as you said, you think about the Jimbo Fisher edition and what he did at Florida State. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's a very interesting take. I'm interested to see what happens in Texas with that. Cool. So, we covered some real intriguing games this weekend. Anything else in college football that excites you or piques your interest?
Well, yeah. So, we're talking about Clay Helton. One of the reasons he's going to be on the hot seat, I thought, is going to be Chip Kelly coming into town. But there's one more reason. And that reason is Herm Edwards.
Play to win the game.
You play to win the game. I mean, I watched the Arizona State game last week, and very impressive. Very impressive. A lot of people say, like, Herm Edwards, he's just a CEO. No, he's not just a CEO. If you watch that game, he was coaching those boys. And that offense is not like a Herm Edwards offense. Extremely innovative. Like, they were it was like big play, big shots, and Herm loved it. Like, he was like, guys, let's keep pushing, let's keep taking chances. You know, he was motivating this guy. He was really coaching. And the thing about Herm Edwards, like, again, people are like, when people say he's just a CEO, it makes it seem like he's not as involved. It's not really a compliment when people say that about a coach. It's like, they also don't realize Herm Edwards is a smart dude. He's a lot smarter than people give him credit for. And the way they played that game, I was just so impressed. And he's going to be, I think, as a recruiter, going to these young kids, LA's a big target for Arizona State. That Phoenix said, they're going to go into LA and they're going to take some of those guys. Those guys are going to come and they're going to go play for Herm over Clay Helton. Because Herm Edwards has the proven track record. Not just in winning games, but really coaching young men to become adults and becoming, good men in their communities and really achieving their best in their lives. So I could see Herm really doing some damage in the Pac-12. And watch out for that USC ASU game this year. I could see Arizona State winning that game as well. I mean, this kid Manny Wilkins, he's not the most consistent quarterback, but he can make a lot of big plays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, as you said, he's in that perfect midpoint spot in Arizona as far as from a recruiting perspective. And you just think about it, we watch Herm Edwards on TV all the time, and he's just like exactly who you'd think would just be. I mean, imagine Herm Edwards coming into your living room and you're a parent and you're sitting down with your son. You hear Herm Edwards talking about, developing your son into from a kid into a young man with character and like all the things we heard on like NFL Live. I'm sure he is selling parents so hard and they're falling head over heels for his pitch. And as you said, LA or even you talk about even in Orange County, Mission Viejo. I forgot what the name of that school in Las Vegas is, the high school. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Bishop Gorman.
Yeah, Bishop Gorman. I mean, you have all these big-time high school football programs where you can recruit from. And he's a known name. He's a known name, and he's going to be able to, he's going to be able to recruit a lot of top-tier talent. And, as of right now, he's 2-0. He's rolling. And, I mean, hey, Arizona State in general hasn't been really that bad in the last couple, last 5, 6, 7 years, right? I mean, they've been relevant.
I'll say one more thing. N'Keal Harry, number 1 on that team, he's the best wide receiver in the country.
Wow.
He's the best.
I have heard of. It's interesting. I haven't gotten a chance to watch him play too much, but I've heard a lot.
He's good. He's good. He's got some Julio in him. He's got some Julio in him for sure. Interesting.
Awesome, man. So that was a good college football roundup for the week coming up. So let's transition into fantasy football. So, week 1 in the books. Let me just say for myself, I'll just speak for me personally, I forgot how stressful fantasy football was. I literally was stressed the entire damn time. And whether I was up or I was down, it was driving me nuts. But I ended up losing in my big league with UMass in our league, and of course I had negative points from New Orleans Saints defense, which drove me nuts, and Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb freaking destroyed me on that Sunday night game, which honestly is the worst. It's the worst when you have to wait for a Monday night game, and you end up getting demolished at the end when you think you have hope. Absolute worst. That happened to me, but one of my 2 other leagues. How'd your first week go, man?
It was great. Man. It was great. I was up, the whole time, I was chilling, man. It was good. I was dominating. My opponent, for some reason, thought having CJ Anderson starting was a good idea. I don't know what you're doing. Week 1 starting him, just don't come to play if you're going to start him. It's like, I don't know what's going on. But I will say one thing, and I remember we were texting. You got really excited that Monday game. I drafted Russell Wilson, blah, blah, blah. Aaron Rodgers, I was doing I knew everything, blah, blah. You were talking mad stuff. What happened? You
He
tell me what
got
happened.
injured.
Wait, who got? But who got more points? Who got more points? Russell Wilson.
He did. Okay, fine. He had
So
6.
put it this way: injured Aaron Rodgers got outperformed Russell Wilson, who you took higher in the draft. And you're talking about right -4 Saints. Maybe you should have took a defense in the 7th round like I did. Then you wouldn't have that issue.
Oh God! First off, let's talk about this. Mash took the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 7th round. How many points did the Jaguars have this past week?
Hold on, let me look it up. I'm not sure. It was hold on.
It was a decent amount. It wasn't crazy, but 7th round, I will say, and I'll make this prediction: it will end up not being worth it. First off,
Really?
that is way too high. Yes.
Then you just haven't done the research. You do know that the Jaguars have gotten more points than every player on your team last year? Do you know that? No, you don't even know that.
What are you talking about?
Yes, besides Russell Wilson, the Jaguars
Besides Russell Wilson. That don't count, bro.
Yeah. So what? Your quarterback? Every one of your position players. Every one of your position. Well, let me check. He might even got more than Russell Wilson. I'm not even sure. But and they gave me 13 points. 13 points. That's a 17-point difference. That's a 17-point difference. So when you're talking about, a defense got more than every one of your position players, and you're telling me I reached? No. You're just playing the game wrong, buddy. That's what's going on. You're playing the game.
I'll tell you why, first off, because Jaguars this year have a target on their back. Last year was the first year they were truly an elite defense.
Who did they lose? Who did they lose on that defense?
It's not about who they lose. It's not about who they lost. It's about the fact that teams know who they are now. They know who their defensive linemen are.
Oh, really? So when Seattle was so good all those years and people knew who they were, did they not dominate?
No, but they did. They did end up not being as dominant as they were the first couple of years. Is that not true?
Yeah, first couple. We're at year 2, so we're still in the first couple of years, buddy. We're still in the first couple of years. It hasn't been a couple of years. I will say one thing though. There is one concern. You got Andrew Luck back in that division. Deshaun Watson is healthy. So
okay.
Yes, that's a real argument. But even then, the argument that people know who they are. People know who they are. That doesn't mean they can stop it. They got some dudes on that defense. They got some real studs on that defense. And like you said it, right, last week, they have 2 elite cornerbacks, right? They have Jalen Ramsey, who is on his way to being maybe the best cornerback in the league.
Although Odell did put 11 catches.
They have a deep pass rushing core. Deep. Like Dante Fowler is not even their second best pass rusher. People really that's a really good team. They got Darius, who's a beast, the line. They have no holes on that defense.
Fair enough, but do you really think that the Denver defense is that far away from them? Considering how many pass rushers they have on their team.
Yes, and I'm
the great cornerbacks on the team.
Here's the issue with the Denver defense. The issue is that I don't know how the Jaguars have a better run game. I trust Fournette in the course of the year, and he will control the tempo of the games on the offensive side. I don't trust Keenum that much. I don't trust their running game that much. And overall, I do think Jaguars have a better defense. I do. And so we'll see. But I think the Jaguars defense is the best defense in the league. And they were the best fantasy defense last year.
So just to note, when Mash calls you buddy, that's how you know he's very passionate about one particular subject.
I called you buddy twice. I don't like to repeat myself. I called you buddy twice. I don't know why.
When Mash calls you buddy, that's how you know he's very, very passionate about a particular subject, and he loves his damn Jaguars defense. I mean, we're gonna see. I particularly thought it was a bit too early, but hey, I mean, if the Jaguars defense does outscore all my skill players, which I don't think will happen, I mean, then hey, maybe it'll be worth it. But past our performances in the past week, anything else surprise you or frustrate you during week 1 of fantasy football?
Case Keenum surprised me. He kept his momentum from last year going. I think he's in another good situation, So that was surprising. I still think in the course of the year he will fall at some point. but maybe we should start taking a look at him. I don't know. But he put up some good fantasy numbers as well.
Yeah, he did pretty solid. I mean, he did have some pretty questionable interceptions because I was actually watching that game again. Being a degenerate with NFL Sunday Ticket, I was able to watch that game pretty much throughout. And he had his flashes last year, but then you also saw him clearly in a new system. It's a little out of sync with some of his receivers, but he's got Demaryius Thomas, he's got Emmanuel Sanders, and he's got Courtland Sutton, right?
Yeah.
So he's got some weapons for sure.
He's got some weapons.
He's got two good running backs as well, in Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay, who's also came out to be a pickup guy, and so he's got weapons, man. That's for sure. Something for me that was frustrating, the damn rain. So there's a damn storm, a whole weather pattern of just overcast over the entire damn East Coast. And again, I had NFL Sunday Ticket, and every single game I was watching, it was raining, and there was just passes being dropped, and just like sloppy play, and that was just driving me nuts. And I was like, why doesn't every team just have a damn dome? That's why it's just have a dome. Don't let the weather impact the players, and just let them do what they do. Don't have sloppy play affect my goddamn fantasy team. And it was just so frustrating. But again, I know a lot of people are accusing me of now being too much of a West Coast California guy. Since we don't get any rain here, it's just sunny, it's beautiful, the weather's great. That's how it is all day. So maybe I'm being a little bit too bougie on that point. But the weather delays and the rain and the sloppy play is definitely frustrating. But it is what it is. That's football, and definitely was. An interesting week one in fantasy. I'm moving on to an interesting fantasy topic. I know we're talking about Aaron Rodgers before about that game, and if any of you guys missed it, you missed pretty much one of the most amazing comebacks I think any of us have ever seen, especially from Aaron Rodgers, and he was pretty much getting destroyed in the first half by Mac and the rest of that defense, and he went down. He got tackled pretty hard, landed awkwardly on his knee, and there was a whole bunch of drama going on where he went into the tent and he had to be helped off the field. Then he went on the cart, and like Superman, he came back for the second half and played the rest of the game and was basically just dropping bombs on one leg, which was really the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
It was crazy. It was insane. It was just insane. That's all I have to say. It was one of the most insane I've ever seen because the ball was flying like 60, 70 yards. It just looked as beautiful as if he had both legs. When the ball was in the air, it just looked like the same. Nothing changed. It was crazy. It looked even better. He was hitting them right on the money. Like he put the ball in the perfect spot for a receiver to make a play.
Yeah, it was literally, and of course, me facing him in fantasy was just making me cry while he was doing this. But it was really amazing because you could tell when he was playing too. I mean, his knees. First off, let's get something clear. His knee is not okay. I mean, he injured his knee. I don't know if it was a tear per se or if it was just a knee sprain, but he injured his knee, and he wasn't really able to plant on it. He wasn't able to move in the pocket, and he wasn't really able to do anything except for stay in the pocket, get rid of the ball if there's any pressure, or he just literally on one leg was just bombing throws downfield right on the money, especially that throw to Geronimo Allison, and then that the pass to Randall Cobb where he took it for a touchdown. It was really amazing, and it was work hard. Now, fast forward to this week, and you and I were kind of talking about this during the game. As far as was it really the right decision to leave him in that game? Because that was super risky because that knee was clearly bothering him. And this week so far, we're recording this on Friday. He hasn't practiced once, which means it's still relatively banged up. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week. I think he probably will, but I'm sure a lot of you guys who either own Aaron Rodgers or you own players on the Packers, such as Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb and Jimmy Graham and some of the other guys. I'm sure you're wondering what to do. And it's an interesting situation he has right now because yes, he is injured, so obviously you have to keep track of his health status going into the Sunday game, and it is a 1 p.m. game, so that's a good part. So you'll find out early on if he's going to play or not. And two, if he does play, they're facing the Vikings. And Mash, you know this as I know you follow the Vikings pretty closely. Their pass rush is nasty, and Mike Zimmer's defense is one of the best in the league at getting after the quarterback. And you know that whether he plays or not, and even if he does play, which I think he probably will, he's not going to be a mobile quarterback. Let's be honest. He's going to be a pocket quarterback, and at best, he's just going to be able to try to get rid of the ball. But when you have a defense like the Vikings, that is a risky proposition. What do you think?
Well, this is what I say. If you don't have a viable backup option, you must play Aaron Rodgers. You have to. After last week, you have to play it. Because Bears had a good defense as well, and they had a better pass rusher who was on a snap count. But Khalil Mack is better than any pass rusher that Vikings have. You have to play. I don't care if Rodgers amputates his leg and plays on a wooden leg. You have to play him. All he needs is his right arm. That's all he needs. As long as his right arm can throw the football, you play him. That's it.
Yeah, I probably agree. Unless you have another top-tier quarterback on your team, which I think most guys probably won't if you were to have Aaron Rodgers, I think you got to play him and you just got to take the risk. Is there a chance that the Vikings are able to somewhat minimize him because he can't move in the pocket and the pass rush can get to him? Possibly, but it is one of those situations. You kind of just got to roll the dice, and the same thing with his wide receivers and his weapons in general. You just got to roll the dice because if you benching those guys, you're going to kill yourself if he's playing and he still puts up the type of performance he did last week. So it is something to keep an eye on, of course, and definitely make sure to keep an eye on his status going into Sunday afternoon. And if you don't have a viable quarterback right now on your roster, try to get one because again, you just want to make sure you're covered in regards to that. Cool. So moving on to the next fantasy topic. So week 2, week 1 was obviously crazy and all over the place, and a lot of surprises like Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic, I should say, and some guys too. A lot of top tier players, such as like Deshaun Watson, for instance, didn't have such great weeks. Mash, what are you looking out as far as for week 2? What are you expecting to see?
I mean, I think Matthew Stafford and Eli Manning, I think we could see them bounce back and have better games. I don't think that, they're pretty off. Both those guys are pretty off their game. I think both those guys will bounce back. And in terms of who's going to come back to earth, I think Jared Cook, 180 yards. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think they're going to give
outrageous.
Yeah, he does that again, like Fitzmagic. He does have these games from time to time. But I think we're going to see him go back to earth. I think they're going to try to feed Amari Cooper the ball a lot more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Raiders are. As I said last week, I honestly think the Raiders are going to be a dumpster fire. For those of you who watched that, who stayed up to watch that game on Monday night, the Rams basically didn't play any of their starters during the preseason, so that first half was basically the preseason, and they came out in the second half, and the Rams just whooped them. They just whooped them up and down the field on offense and defense, on special teams. I mean, they were just destroying them, and I am definitely skeptical of the Raiders, definitely for sure. Although I do think Amari Cooper is talented, Did you watch Derek Carr play in that game?
Yeah, I did. I mean, he looked good in the beginning.
What happened to him though in the second half? He was just throwing picks left and right.
Marshawn Lynch realized he's like, 32, 33? That's what happened. He didn't have the run support in the second half. He needs a running game. And I think he's a good quarterback, but I also don't know. And I think this is the one concern with everyone, how good him and Gruden are going to mesh. I don't think it's a match made in heaven. I think Gruden is very demanding, and he was just out of it. But I don't think it's the end of Derek Carr. Let the season play out. I don't think the Raiders are a playoff team, even if Cook is good this year. So this is a rebuilding year for the Raiders.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them. I am definitely not a fan of his, but who knows? We'll see. How's all those guys in the Raiders? I do think I agree with you that there will be a lot of guys that'll bounce back. I know I talked about Deshaun Watson before. Didn't have that great of a game. Matt Ryan also did not have a good game. I think those guys will definitely you'll see a reversion to the mean, and I think they'll have a better week this week. And I think some of the guys that went crazy too, such as like Patrick Mahomes and Fitzpatrick, I don't think you're going to see those weeks again. I think you'll probably see some more normalized numbers. So, just keep for you listeners out there, just keep your expectations in line. That, week one does get a little crazy and teams are a little rusty and, things don't always necessarily continue on a consistent basis. So I definitely do see a reversion to the mean. I think you'll see some things normalize a bit more for week 2. All right. So going on to our last fantasy topic, which will be, I know last week we had the MASH Fab 5. This week and going forward, we'll call it the MASH and Soul Fab 5. We'll have our 5 top fantasy starters, or I guess you say sleepers or streaming plays for the week. At quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense. I think these are our must starts that I think will help you guys win your fantasy matchups for the week. Mash, who is your Fab 5 for week 2?
All right, quarterback, I got Andrew Luck. I think he's gonna have a big game. Running back, I got Chris Carson. I think he's gonna get in the end zone this week, and he's definitely the best running back on that team. So I could see, and I think he's a little on the radar right now. Wide receiver, Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams. I think this is the game where he gets in the end zone, maybe even 2 touchdowns. I think he's gonna have a big game, and I think Rivers is gonna keep rolling. He's just gonna keep rolling. And Keenan Allen had his touchdown last week. I think this week it'll be Mike Williams. Tight end, I like George Kittle. I've been a fan of his since he had a really good rookie season. I don't know if people realize. Very under radar. I think he's going to have a big year. Might not be a big touchdown guy, but he's going to get the yards. I think he's a consistent 50-plus yards a game. So I think he's not going to necessarily have, maybe he might not have those big games for you, but he won't have, his floor is higher as well. And the defense, I like the Chargers. They're going against Buffalo. Forget about it. But McCoy, I think he's getting close to the end. I don't like the weapons. I don't like the quarterback. Don't like their O-line. I think Chargers are going to kill him.
Yeah, I think the Chargers, I know they didn't obviously have a great week last week. I think they're definitely a team, when we talk about reversion to the mean, as far as week 1 being fluky, the Chargers are a really good team. And yeah, I do agree that I think they'll probably bounce back and have a good week overall. All right, so for my Fab 5, I guess you could say my inaugural Fab 5, I'm going to go for quarterback. I'm going to go Case Keenum. They have the Raiders this week, and as you guys, again, if you guys watched the game, the Raiders defense sucks. And why they suck is because they traded freaking Khalil Mack, who's one of the best defensive players in the league. And I think that Case Keenum is going to have a great week. I think that whole offense, to be honest, is going to have a great week. So definitely, I would definitely, if you have him if you need a streaming option, the quarterback, I think he's a really great option. For running back, I'm going to go with AP, Adrian Peterson. Now, here's the thing. He's not the same guy. He's not going to be putting up those same insane numbers, but he looked pretty good for the Redskins last week. And, I think that people don't really realize that the Redskins have a really good offensive line. They have Trent Williams. They have a couple other really good offensive linemen, and I think he's going to have a really good week. Chris Godwin is my wide receiver pick. This is a sleeper pick. For those of you who don't know, he is basically he's the wide receiver number 2 on the Bucs. And last week, we talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick had a great week. A lot of targets also went Deshaun Jackson's way, and Deshaun Jackson this week is probably going to be out with a concussion. So expect to see more targets go towards Chris Godwin's way. I think he's going to have a huge week. And at tight end, I have Jordan Reed. Again, I think that he is going to be able to have a pretty big week this week. And he had a good week last week, but I think that he'll continue on a roll going forward. And by the way, the Colts defense. When was the last time the Colts defense was good? Have they ever been good? I can't even remember the last time the Colts defense was ever good.
Well, I don't think they're still good. I still think they need a few years. So not. I mean, they've always like Dwight Freeney. They had those teams. That's about it. They never had a great defense even then. Like they just had a few really good players, and that's about it.
Yeah. And just back to so Adrian Peterson, obviously on the Redskins, he's going to go against this soft defense. Same from Jordan Reed, and I think both those guys will have really good weeks. And for my defense, this is also if you're looking for a streaming defense, I'm going to go with my New York Football Giants. I think I don't think they're an amazing defense at this point in time by any means, and Olivier Vernon is not playing. However, the Dallas Cowboys offense does not look good. They pretty much have no weapons. Their offensive line is struggling mightily. They don't have Travis Frederick. Connor Williams, a left guard, is getting his butt whooped. And Dak Prescott looked like hot garbage last week.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to turn the ball over this week.
And, and it's crazy because I think as far as guys that are really on the hot seat and under a lot of pressure, man, the Cowboys, if they have another down week, a week that's similar to last week, all you're going to hear about is just Cowboys fandom going crazy. And I'll just say also, just from a fantasy perspective, I don't know if I'd touch, except for Zeke, don't touch anybody in the Cowboys offense. That offense is a hot mess, and unless they can somehow find somebody on the roster, maybe at the receiver position or tight end that can kind of open things up, that is not a place you want to go.
Yeah. I'll say yeah.
That's it, man.
Yep.
Yeah. So awesome, man. So that's our fantasy roundup. So as we kind of wrap up here, we're going to go into a new section of the podcast, which we haven't gotten into before, which is the moneyline bets. So, Mash, I know you have 5 moneyline bets for the NFL and college football for our listeners.
Well, not just money line, not just money. But these are the bets that I actually make. So these are the bets I'm making this weekend. I have 5 for college football and 5 for NFL. It just happens to be all my NFL picks are money line picks this week.
I see.
But yeah. So I'm just gonna get right into it. So Florida State playing Syracuse. They're 3-point favorites. So I would definitely take the spread in that game because Florida State's a very talented team. They just haven't been able to put it all together. And I could see them destroying Syracuse this week and, covering the spread. Second game, as we talked about, Ole Miss versus Alabama. The money line is over 1,000, meaning if you put in $10, you'll win $100. Now, I'm not suggesting you bet the money line. I will. But what's really a safe, the spread, 21 points. You got to take the spread. It's a safe bet. Well, it's not safe, but it's a good bet, considering I think Ole Miss is a lot better than people think. I like the over in the USC-Texas game. It's 47.5. And you know how college games can go. I mean, I think this one could be a lot more offensive game than people think. Another one, Arizona State, San Diego State, over 47. One of the reasons why this spread is so low is because Arizona State didn't score a lot of points last week. But if you watch them play, they put up a lot of yards. So I think those yards are going to end up being touchdowns, and I think that is going to be way over 47. And my fifth game is Vanderbilt and Notre Dame. The spread is, they're 13-point underdogs. I'm going to pick Vanderbilt, and I think they will cover the spread. Yeah. So now we're going to move on to NFL. So NFL, you got Chargers versus Bill. You got it. If you can, bet heavy on the Chargers. Bet heavy. They're big favorites. 325, that's the number. So if you bet the money line, that means you bet like $10, you'll get back $3 in profit. But it's worth it, because there's no way the Bills are going to beat the Chargers. There's no way. There's no way. They don't have the talent to do it. Second game, I like the Panthers money line. Plus 210. That means if you put in $10, you win 21. I think they're going to win that game. I like the Colts over the Redskins, plus 195. Kansas City over the Steelers, plus 185. So, I watched that Kansas City game last week. That offense is the most clicking offense in the NFL right now. Just watch that. They were on fire. I don't think Steelers are going to be able to stop Tyreek Hill. And I think Steelers are off their game. I think this is the week they're going to be like, oh, should we get Bell back or not? I like Kansas City. And my last game, Seattle. Gotta pick Seattle. That's good. They're going to win that game. Plus 156, money line, take them.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Those are the MASH money makers.
And I'm making these exact bets. And we're going to keep record of these, you know. We're going to figure out a way how to keep record, but we will. And then I think also once we have a website, we'll put it up on the website too, so people can keep track.
Yeah, and definitely for sure. And listen, if you guys making money out there off of Mash's bets, send him a Venmo charge.
Yeah, man. Give me that. Give me that 5% commission, you know? Yeah. And don't risk more than you're willing to lose, all right? That's just another thing.
Good advice for sure. Awesome, man. So let's so we're gonna get into the final part of our show. This is our weekly tradition. As you guys know, we're big Giants and Jets fans. So we're gonna predict the Giants and Jets outcomes. So the first game we have up on Sunday is the Dolphins and the Jets. Both of these teams won last week. The Dolphins played in a freaking 8-hour game versus the Titans. I wonder if they're still tired from that game because they had multiple delays due to thunder and lightning. But they came away with a victory versus the Titans. And, of course, we talked about the Jets, who had a huge victory versus the Lions. Jets are at home. This is their home opener. What are you thinking? What's your pick for this game?
I so badly want to pick the Jets because I hate the Dolphins. But I think the Dolphins, they have more experience. Tannehill has more experience at the quarterback position. I think they're going to end up winning the game 28-17.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't love the Dolphins team, but I just think they're going to end up winning the game. Maybe Jets are feeling themselves a little too much. I don't know. I mean, Dolphins, they played well last week, too. You know,
they did.
So they played a lot better. Tannehill looked a lot better than I thought he would. So we'll see. You know.
Ryan Tannehill was 20 for 28 for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. He never has those numbers.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, and he doesn't have Jarvis Landry this year. Doesn't have Ajayi either. So it's a lot more on him. But again, and it's not. I think I like what I see out of Sam Darnold, but he's still a rookie. You know, he's still a rookie. He's gonna have some bad games, and that's okay. Gaze is a good coach, and he had a bad year last year. A lot of people were questioning his coaching ability, but he's a very good game manager and very good offensive mind. I think Dolphins win this game.
Very, very interesting. Okay, cool. Well, so I will actually go the other way, and I will say that the Jets will pull this game out 20-17. I think it'll be a defensive game. I think that Sam Darnold will not necessarily win the game for the Jets, but I think he won't lose the game for the Jets. And I think the defense is going to keep them in this game, and they'll muster up just enough to pull out the victory. And I think they'll be able to take advantage of some mistakes that Ryan Tannehill is going to make. Again, I'm just going off the Ryan Tannehill that I know, who is very erratic and very inconsistent. So I'm just expecting him possibly to have kind of a step back compared to last week. But that's my prediction for the week. So I'll have the Jets going 20-17. Go ahead.
One more thing about this game. If Darnold has to do more this game, if the defense isn't as good, I think that's going to hurt them as well. I see Darnold throwing 2+ picks this game.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. He's a rookie, you know? Like, that's okay.
Absolutely. And then that's the thing. If he does, that's him losing the game for the Jets, right?
Yeah.
But, again, that's fine. It's part of the lumps as far as for a rookie quarterback. Okay. Now, for the Giants, Sunday night game, prime time versus the Cowboys. This is a big game for both the Giants and the Cowboys. They're both 0-1. And, you know, I think especially for the Cowboys, they're under a lot of pressure because Jason Garrett is already – I feel like he's always on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat every single year. They did not look good last week, and they don't really have any answers on the roster as of now. So I think it's a must-win for them. And I think it's a must-win for the Giants, to be honest, because you know what? I think 4 of the last 5 years they've gone 0-2, and they have been very good. And the one year that they didn't go 0-2, they went to the playoffs. And I think, you know, when you dig a hole 0-2 in a tough division, you really put yourself back. And I think it's definitely a very important game for both teams. I think I chose the Giants to lose last week to the Jaguars. It ended up being a close game. I think the Giants end up pulling this one out. I think they're able to contain Ezekiel Elliott just enough to kind of make it a one-dimensional game, and I think they'll score enough points in offense to win this. And I'll say 27-17 Giants over the Cowboys. What about you, Mash?
I think Giants are going to lay the smackdown on the Cowboys. I think they're going to whoop them. That defense is not as good as the Jaguars' defense. I think, what's their best weapon? Ezekiel Elliott. But you know what? Giants got one too in Saquon Barkley. So that's going to cancel each other out. Who is Dak Prescott going to throw the ball to? Nobody. Like, who is this tight end? Like, who are these guys? Like, I think the final score is going to be 31-10. I think Giants are going to... I think they're going to lay the smackdown, and I just don't... Like, this is so... You know, there's some things that are so obvious, right? Now, forget about this game. It's just like, what were you thinking during the offseason? Fine, you get rid of Dez, but you really think... Why are you trying to make Dak Prescott... Just because Tom Brady did it a certain way, why does Dak Prescott have to do it the same exact way? Give him some weapons. Give him some help.
No, I definitely agree with that.
It's ridiculous.
They're definitely not helping Dak's cause.
No, it's not.
With weapons. But it's a huge game for both teams, for Giants fandom and for the Cowboys fandom. And I think if the Giants can pull this game out, I think it will be a huge momentum swing for them, especially because they have a really tough stretch coming up. But yeah, awesome. So we got our predictions in the books. That is another podcast in the books for us as well, Mash.
Yeah.
Week 1 was awesome. Really excited for week 2 coming up. As we said, there's a lot of interesting games both in college football and, of course, the NFL. And I'm really excited to see it. Had a great time chatting with you, man. And let's do it again next week.
Yeah, man. Let's do it soon.
Awesome, man. Have a great week, and to the rest of you guys, thanks for listening. Take care.
Hustling, 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 hustling. Every day I'm hustling, 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 every day.